Yo, and we're back. Today I'm joined by Ada, who runs the Different Voice initiative over in the big UK, London. Thank you for talking with me this morning. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, my absolute pleasure. I'm so happy and to be here and excited for this conversation.
Well, I hope I don't let you down. I don't want to be a big
Oh.
anticlimax. Um, so I've been following you on Instagram for some time, and you have a different voice. You talk about race and race issues, and I guess you're a social commentator about the culture war. And where did that start for you? Like, I'm really curious about why you put yourself out there in the first place. What's the impetus? Do you want to, I don't know, begin where you began?
Yeah, I mean, I've really grown and I'm really evolving in the things that I'm doing and the space that I've sort of entered. And it kind of started, because I was kind of frustrated. I'm an angry human being. I was what
I
I was
fully
watching
relate
a
to that. Yeah.
I was watching a documentary last night about some issues going on in Nigeria, and that's how she literally started the documentary. I'm an angry Nigerian, and I'm like, I'm an angry human being because as you know, we have the culture wars, we have identity politics going on, and every event that happened, or is happening at the moment is being turned to this partisan um, issue, bipartisan issue, and people don't know where they stand. People are confused. Issues are being conflated, and being used for political reasons. So I was just basically sick of that. I was sick of turning on the news. I was sick of going on social media and seeing everyone saying the same thing. Um, this was pretty much before I was connected with other people saying things like I'm saying. But at that time, though, I wasn't connected to many, and everyone was saying, um, ideas about the black race, the white race, and you know, all the gender conversations. And I just wasn't buying into a lot of the narrative at that time. So I said I couldn't find someone saying something different. So I said I would be that person that would say something different. And that was when I thought of different voice. But at that time it was just I was just using it as an alias, because I was working quite a, um fancy spa boutique, and I was already on social media, with them, so I didn't want to conflate things, so I said I'll use it as an alias. And then I started going by my own name, and it didn't fit, and I was like, no, I am different voice. I know other people are saying similar things like as I am, but I still think there's a lot more work to do. I still think there's a lot more challenge um that's needed, more nuance, really, more bringing together of people and ideas, which is what I want Different Voice Initiative to be about. Because I have very strong views, I have very strong opinions. I've spoken with people who also have very strong views and opinions. That's not an issue. Having an opinion, having an identity, and wanting yourself to fit into an identity box or category is not an issue. I will talk about that a bit later, because I know people are wanting to move into label-less societies or raceless societies. The issue is not the identifications. The issue is the clashes of values, the clashes of principles. No one knows how to communicate respectfully to reach a mutual sort of solution. It's either it's my way or through my lens, my principles, or it's no way. And that's what DVI is all about.
I love that. Yeah, it's actually my last guest is a transsexual educator based in Denmark, and he said exactly the same thing. He said, "No one is saying what I'm thinking," and so I just wanted to say it myself. Do
Yeah.
you do you have a background in politics or sociology? Did you go the whole university sort of route, or you just wanted to use your voice out of your own life experiences? Like, yeah, what was your
Well, no, I don't have a degree on in philosophy or anything like that. I mean, at
which you
school,
don't which you don't need. I'm not saying yeah, that's like a
oh,
prerequisite to have
I
an
mean,
opinion. Yeah.
No, but it's such a beautiful point, and I will go through that a bit later. So yeah, I don't have any degrees in, well, I do have a degree in business and law. So I do business, I'm not in the legal scene, but I do business. I help a family business and things like that. I do have I did philosophy at school, and I kind of self-taught myself
Mm.
because I sort of passed my exams 1 year before, which is weird in England. In Nigeria, it's very common. Like it's age, it's not by age, it's by skill and intellectual ability. But obviously, in the UK, you stay, like you have your year ones, year twos, and so on. But I kind of passed all my exams. It's called GCSEs, I'm sure you know, 1 year before. So I had nothing to do my final year of school. And so they were like, do you want to take up an advanced level subject? I said, why not? And it was like, well, we're a secondary school, we're not a college. So you're going to have to kind of do this on your own. I was like, why not? So I did a whole year of philosophy of religion, actually. So I think that was probably the foundation of what's led me to have a curiosity of thought and, philosophy and things like that. But yeah, I have an opinion. I've been through quite a lot. I've seen quite a lot of people. I've read a lot of things. Um, and yeah, I guess all of that together just makes me have an understanding of social issues and people, because that's where my passion is. My passion is for people, understanding people, trying to figure out how they see life and what's got them to where they are. I'm more curious at that rather than any other narrative that shapes or any other statistic or data that's meant to tell me who that person is. No, I'm curious in the human, in the soul of that person. I sound quite creepy. I'm curious in the soul, but you
You
know
don't
what I
sound
mean.
creepy. No, I don't think you sound creepy. I think it's wonderfully refreshing that you just have a curiosity. Because when I guess became, I guess I've always had an interest in politics. And then I did end up traveling and seeing poverty in the third world or, developing economies. And I went to university because I thought that was the only way I could understand it, right? And then I was like this painfully overly opinionated, this is how the world has to be sort of guy when I was going through that period of formal study. But then, coming out of education and then going into actually working with different communities that are, experience deprivation or marginalized, made me realize that curiosity, like you're talking about, and looking for similarities and connection and having compassion and kindness are a much better way of helping, I guess, shift society forwards than this is the only way to do things and being really didactic and finger pointy and judgmental. And yet I feel like being didactic, finger pointy and judgmental is very trendy right now. Although, albeit, I think we're starting to see a bit of a shift with voices like your own. But is that the situation as you see it?
Mm, definitely not on social media. I
Mm,
think maybe off social media and in your own circles, I think yes, but on social media it is very, very, very toxic. I even had to take a break of social media, and I'll probably take another one soon because it's just, even if you just want to sort of look at things you want to look at, it's just, you're just bombarded with opinions, with I had a friend, and she sort of went semi-viral yesterday for just sharing an opinion about fat phobia and not allowing things to sort of get to you. And it was like the amount of abuse that one can get, it's toxic. So I do think maybe there's a shift, but I definitely think that people are not um they're not being open about that. They're not being public. They still want to stay in their own sort of ideas and conceptions about things, even if they think different. They're scared of being cancelled. They're scared of being shamed. They're scared of being the next potential headline, because it just takes one
moment.
viral tweet, one viral moment for you to be on the news cycle for days and weeks. No one
Mm.
wants that. I just need to put my battery on charge because I don't know why. It's just give me
Yeah,
a
yeah.
second.
Do your
Sorry.
thing. No, no. Charge up. That's okay. You're
Sorry.
totally fine.
Yeah.
I've done that stuff all the time. I remember I was giving this presentation at a company once, and
Mhm.
then my laptop died just because I hadn't charged it, you know.
It's
So
annoying. I thought it was
yeah.
charged, but it
Yeah.
happened.
No, you're good. You're good.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I also want to say, sorry, I can't believe I forgot this part of my life. I literally just, but another thing that shaped how I think right now is because, like I said, I have a passion for people and definitely culture. I've been to quite a few places. I speak another language that's not my native language or English. I speak Portuguese, just randomly learned myself. So I'm interested in the Portuguese, Brazilian culture and things like that, and every other culture. But I was similar to you in the sense of I went to uni because I thought the academic route was sort of the way to go. But then I started working in a church and I started volunteering in a church for the good part of 10 years.
oh, yeah.
Like, yeah, it was a big chunk of my life. And I encountered, I would say, real human suffering because we were quite an active church and we were out there in the community in terms of homelessness, a lot of youth work. I headed up a lot of youth projects, a lot of youth work, and seeing all these young people, especially in a prosperous country like the UK, and just being so despondent and being so, hopeless with everything that going for them, but because of false beliefs, and it literally was that, it was just false beliefs and false ideas about the past and about the present. And that was very, very, very painful to see. And like I said, that was a good part of 10 years. So I think I have this burning frustration of trying to get people to understand that they are the masters of their own lives, not their past, not even sort of the circumstances around them. It's the choices and the attitudes that they choose to take on that makes the difference. So that's kind of another side of.
No, I fully get that. I work with a lot of youth in homelessness every week. I use martial arts and kickboxing training as a like a positive aspect of their life to get physically fit, get social connection, mental health, stress release, all that sort of stuff. So I hear those stories all the time. When you say they have false beliefs, what do you mean by that? What sort of false beliefs do the kids or the young people or the community that you used to work with have?
Well, so the ones I worked with, the young boys especially, were predominantly young black boys, or non-white boys. And it was this idea that that they had little prospects because of, a racist society that they live in. I remember having a conversation with a boy telling me that, and the ironic thing is, and I will say ironic and I will explain why. So they're in the drugs, they're in the gang life and so on and so forth. And it's almost like, because those things aren't easy to do. When I had my reckless teenage years, I was in that scene as well, and I realized that actually this is not an easy thing to do. This is not an easy lifestyle to keep up. It's not. People think it's an easy way out, but it's not. I'm not a drug dealer, but once you start with the supplying and the calculating and the finances of it, and the demand and the advertising, and there's a lot of things that goes into this line of work. And I'm thinking, even those who are in the music scene, and let's say it's not doing so well, but I see how they grind. I see how they get up early on a Sunday morning, Saturday morning, go out in the streets and stay all day trying to sell their CDs, for example. And I say to myself, that's all good, but isn't this showing you that you have talents for marketing? You have talents for design.
Mm.
Why don't you enter that field as well? Oh, but it's too hard, it's too racist. But who are you selling your stuff to? They're not all people from your own race. You're literally approaching anyone without giving a damn about what they think of you. So what's the difference between that and putting on a suit or whatever else? I'm not saying everyone needs to go in the corporate world because that's not the only way either.
Mm.
But unfortunately, at the moment, that is a way to have stability. That's a way to have gain assets, you know, your cars, your house, and things like that. So it was this false belief that racism is the way, it's the biggest block and barrier to their lives. And it's almost like, no, it's not. You need to look in the mirror and have an honest conversation with yourself. That was...
A lot of the conversation in social justice spaces, particularly, you know, post George Floyd in 2020, say that racism is the biggest block for young people of color to social advancement. Do you disagree with that?
Yes, I do.
How do you think these boys that you've, in your lived experience, been dealing with, how do you think they get that concept? Where does that come from?
Two places: the media and family. That's
Yeah.
it. The media and their and the family who have gone through racism. Now, racism is and can be a barrier, but it's not the biggest barrier at all to a person of color living in this country, in the United Kingdom. Because if it's racism, let's not talk anecdotally now, the stats should be consistent. And the thing that we see is that within such minority demographic groups, not all so-called minority groups are hindered. There are others that are doing better, maybe some African demographic group in the UK, some Caribbean demographic group in the US. So if racism is the issue, and racism is, you know, according to, there's different definitions, right? It can be a systemic thing. It can be the day-to-day prejudicial issues that go on. But it's in terms of one race having that so-called power over another race. So if Black people as a whole are in the same race, then we should all be hindered in our life. And that's not what we see. We see that those who follow the formula, you know, of effort and reward, hard work and reward, which is not always, doesn't always work for all, even people in the white demographic group that are the, you know, the main holders of power in society. We see that effort and reward doesn't work for them as well. So racism is not the biggest issue. There are other issues that we do not speak about, that if we speak about as alongside with this idea of racism being the biggest hindrance, I think we will see more of a progression. You know, just very quickly, there are in other countries, you know, people always say, know your history, but they seem to cherry pick which history will best suit their narrative. Because if you go to other countries that face diabolical barriers, you know, not for success, just for survival, you know, just to survive, forget success. These people in these countries are not thinking of success. They're thinking of making it to the next day. You know, we like to use the narrative of slavery when we talk about the Black-white dynamic of racism here in the English-speaking West. But you forget that slavery is still being practiced today in some areas in the Gulf countries where you can literally pick up a human on an app. These are real barriers. You know, no one is being sold on an app today in the UK or in the US or in Canada or in Australia, but they're being sold in these Gulf countries. Now, this doesn't mean that because it's worse over here, I have to be satisfied with what I have and who I am and all these things. But it's all about perspective. And it's all about, if these people can come from less than nothing and come to a country and seize opportunity, do what they need to do and make it, then what about me? You know, who my family has been here for generations. Why can't I see these benefits that other people seem to be seeing? So
I was talking to another guy in the UK, real cool dude called Elias Williams on my little old podcast here. And yeah, he said that in the UK, there isn't the racial segregation and separation that we see in the American context. Is that true of your experience? It's more of a class thing. You have like upper class, middle class, working class, and there's a lot more in common between working class people, irrespective of their skin color, than we would
yes,
often see portrayed in the media. Is that true?
Yes and no. It depends where you go. It does depend where you go because, for example, you have communities, let's say even in London where I am, for example, where it is predominantly Black or predominantly white or predominantly Asian, and there are different dynamics in that group. It's definitely, and it's because of the history aspects of it, it will not be like America, even the demographic size and the population size. America is just there. But I think in the UK, these conversations definitely do happen, and we do have the same race baiters here. That's why amongst young people, and even actually, it's a good question because it's so funny, even with the white lower class, working class, white poor here in the UK, it's not, they sort of even jump onto the narrative of this so-called Black struggle. Obviously, they change it a bit to be, it's just the system, that's against us. But there is this idea that there is something out there, that is the biggest impediment to my success. And if someone from your so-called group does become successful, then it becomes a thing of luck. It becomes a thing of, this is just an exception, as opposed to, this is an example of, if I follow a specific formula, I can also be in the same boat, same place.
There are people who will be watching this who will argue that that may be true, that some people of color can advance by following, like a meritocratic formula of working hard and getting an education, but they're the exception to the rule. And I don't know the statistics in the United Kingdom. So are people of color like in jail more, earning less, dying earlier, or are things better? Is it more equal between Black and white people over there?
No, it's not. This is the main point. There are obvious disparities here in the UK, and that's why I even take back what I said, and I will say clearly that there is a clear Black and white split when you look at the data in some areas, like education, especially with young boys, young Black boys, unfortunately. Education, they're not meeting the standards. When you look across the board, when you look at the data, sometimes they are at the lower end, and yes, it does play into the class aspect of it as well. So it's all together. If you look at business and entrepreneurship, obviously there are less Black CEOs, which was a big talking point a few months ago, trying to equalize that space. When you talk about crime and statistics, yes, there are disparities there as well. But again, it depends on your location, because the problem with these statistics is that they sort of take it nationwide. But when you go deeper into the data, you see that it's not nationwide. It's in places like, for example, London, where most Black people reside. So of course, the statistics will be skewed in a way, but we don't look at that. We don't look at that information. For example, it said that young Black people are 60% more likely to be stopped in an area in the UK. And then when you look at the actual raw numbers, it was like two Black boys. But because the demographic group there was really small compared to the white group, it skews the data. And that's why I say we have to have a balance between looking at the statistics and data and actually speaking to real people from real places. So yes, there are disparities in health as well. The whole narrative of Black women dying more during childbirth, that's here as well. So there are obvious disparities. However, not all of that is due to a system that's designed to make that person or that group fail. The laws affect different groups differently. And that's what we need to look at to see how we can balance that with also education of the person, of the individual. For example, young boys in these inner cities, what is their mindset? Where are they getting their influences from? Look at that. look at the individual agency side, but also look at how the laws can shift a bit, because it's one thing to sort of help a young man think different, for example, but if you don't change or allow the circumstances to change somehow, then the cycle just continues. But I don't know. Yeah.
No, 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 no. That makes good sense. It's people will argue that that's quite a, what do we say? I guess it's more of a conservative individualist look at life outcomes. Like, despite the circumstances one person might be in, you can still work hard. You can still get ahead. You can still take options that will improve your situation, the situation of your family. Do you think that, and I know this is probably a basic question. It is a basic question, but do you think that environment does play some role in outcome?
Yeah, that's literally what I mentioned. I think there has to be a balance between individual agency and societal responsibility. However, in my own opinion, there has to be more of an emphasis on
Yeah,
the
sure.
individual. There has to be more. I definitely do agree that your environment does shape you, but you cannot be powerless in your environment. I watched another documentary, and like we've all seen, it's nothing new. And you have these young boys, for example, in America. I've spoken to boys in the UK that say, well, this is where they've put me. I can't move. And I'm thinking it's difficult to move, but it's not impossible, and I think that's where I'm coming from. And going back to other people who have come from more horrendous circumstances and have been able to, through individual agency and power, make a decision, because that's the hardest bit. Make that decision first, because once you make that decision, life is funny. It sort of changes your circumstances, around you to push you towards that goal. I mean, I'm not saying anything new, but some people are so powerless and so hopeless that making that decision is hard enough. Again, because of the family influences, what the media says, focusing too much on the wrong side of history. I think all this plays a part. So yes, the system does play a part. That's why many countries, let's say in the third world, people are dying, because no matter how much individual agency there is, it doesn't matter. There's no food. But I will never deviate from this idea that you are able, there is a power in a human being to make things happen for themselves.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the cultural figures that we find most inspiring are people who have like done that, right?
That's the point. The most amazing stories are from people who had nothing in nothing, and they built something for themselves. So that's why I can't subscribe to this idea that only when everything around you is crystal waters and bed of roses is the only time that you're able to find happiness and peace and success for your own individual life. Because at the end of the day, you are living your life, in your own sphere. So you were born alone, you die alone. So there has to be more emphasis in making life for you by yourself.
Yeah, I like that. I find that, that's a very hopeful, optimistic, and I would say powerful message. It does seem to me, from my reading of the world, kind of quite counter to a lot of what's like cool right now. And do you think that's true? Do you think that there's a focus on, and I sound like a real old conservative saying this, but do you think there's a focus on amplifying how you might be structurally oppressed, or how your childhood trauma carried on? Or do you know what I mean? Like, we kind of focus on the deficits more than on the solutions on social media and in social justice spaces, at the expense of our own like ability to change things. Do you think that's true, or am I just a conservative old?
You bad conservative man. I'm joking. No,
do you know what I'm saying though? Like
yeah, of course. But if I'm being quite honest, I think there's more focused on it in first world developed countries, but more these big four, US, Canada, and the UK. I don't know about Australia actually, so I won't say, but definitely US, Canada, and the UK. There is this big push of victimology, and everything bad in my life is someone else's fault. And I think it's because we've made it in a way. We've so advanced in so many things that you have this luxury to do that. I doubt, definitely when I was growing up in my country, I didn't hear none of this, because we were more focused on concrete issues like, sustaining a family. And I don't mean because everyone is poor. No, not even if you were well off in like Nigeria, Ghana, you still had different values. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but there was not, and there is not, this idea, and sometimes they're in less favorable circumstances, but they don't push these narratives of it's our government. They don't like the government. They talk about the government, they complain about the government, but they get on with things, and they don't have these divides and these rifts among themselves, because that's what happens. The more you blame the system, the more you look at sort of that external. Weirdly enough, your communities suffer because not everyone in your community thinks that way anyway. So communities are fragmented, whereas in some other countries where they're focusing on, that individual agency and things like that, they're more together because everyone is trying to sort of, build something for themselves. So that's empowering, and that's what attracts other people to you. Whereas if you have this kind of blamey attitude, it's quite repelling. It's no one wants to be around that. And so I definitely think that there is more of a focus on, on lack of self-responsibility and accountability, and as many people say, a lot of things can be another person's fault, but the person who is responsible to fix it is yourself. And if you don't have the power to fix it, for example, if I have cancer, God forbid, I can't fix that. I have to look for, the right professionals to help me, but I have to do that. I have to go, I have to search. No one can baby me. If I don't want the help, no one is going to force that help on me. So I think there definitely needs to be a pushback on the self,
Do you follow Coleman Hughes?
Yeah.
He talks about this a little. He talks about the new approach to anti-racism that has been popularized by like Robin DiAngelo and Ibn Kendi is really disempowering for Black people. For it kind of infantilizes people of color. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do, because standards are dropped, excuses are made, things are different sometimes when it comes to so-called marginalized groups, not just Black people, but any group that society or culture has deemed to be, in the oppressed category, right? So it could be Black people, now it's transgender, and LGBTQ. Used to be women, but women are now the oppressors, especially in the UK.
Yeah, I've been watching
because
that debate. It's crazy.
Yeah, women are no longer in, and this is another good point, and that's why it's very, very dangerous to focus on this victimology ideology, because it always flips. It will always flip. And for example, your group might be the victim today, but you could become the oppressor tomorrow. That's why I'm saying stop focusing on this collectivized oppression, dynamic. You need to focus on yours. That's why I don't like to religiously identify with groups, because like I said, only a few hundred, no, about 100 or so years ago, women were the ones fighting for their rights. Now another group is fighting for their rights from women. So the dynamic always flips. today the Black demographic group, I mean, they were before actually the enemy, now they're the victims, then that scale, that could flip again tomorrow. So we just have to be careful with that. I forgot your first question or yeah, no, I did forget. About victimhoods. What did you say? Sorry, I completely forgot.
I said Common Hughes says that he says that a lot of the new approach to anti-racism, for those who aren't familiar with it,
infantilizes.
infantilize. Yeah. Do you feel that? Do you feel like talked down to by a lot of, I guess, white activists?
Well, me, no, because I've sort of, they know who I am. I've cut that nonsense off. But I think generally there can't be different rules for people. I mean, it doesn't happen so much, but it happens often or not. Often or not enough, sorry. And, you know, there's more leniency if you are deemed to have already suffered enough in life, for example. So I think that definitely occurs, which is not helpful whatsoever at all, because racism will always exist. Barriers in life will always exist. You know, life can be cruel, you know, with or without racism, with or without, you know, poverty or anything else. Life can be cruel. So to have this idea that someone is always going to come and save you, or someone's always going to come and, you know, sort of have your back, it's not an empowering thing. We need help. We're not, you mentioned individualistic. I don't believe that you go through life alone, you know. You go through life. I also don't believe that hard work and merit is the ticket to a good life. I think hard work, yes, merit, skill, networking. This, people underestimate the power of having a strong group of people who know what they're talking about around you, but many people don't have that. They have a lot of people who moan and whine with them and cuddle them, and that's different. So good networking, I think these hustling, being able to hustle, being able to influence, being able to negotiate, these are skills that no one wants to talk about anymore. We just want to talk about what system or process or practice is in place, but we don't want to talk about how to navigate or maneuver, you know, how they did in the past, how the so-called ancestors did in the past. That's why people like Booker T. Washington were able to be icons in their time. I'm not talking about icons for us, icons in their time, because they were able to practically understand the world they lived in and make something of it for themselves. But we don't talk about that anymore.
Do you get a hard time saying all of this all the time? Because this is a lot of what you talk about on your own platforms. Do you get a lot of pushback? Do you get a lot of people saying that you're a sellout, that you're conservative, blah, 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 blah?
Yes. I mean, I'm not conservative politically anyway, so that just falls on deaf ears. But I do get a lot of pushback. I get a lot of hate. I get a lot of, you're not allowed to talk. What's your degree? What's your diploma? What's your PhD? You don't live here or there. I get a lot of that, but I really don't care. I don't care because everyone has, you know, if they have that willingness to share and express, you know, themselves of what they see and how, because I've also, the things I talk about, I've also applied in my own life, and I was able to leave quite impossible situations. My life has been really funny. So, you know, I've been in quite dire situations, and I've been able to leave that without the help and support. I mean, I've been in that victimhood state for years, you know, and I've blamed everything on everyone else and everything else, but nothing changes. Nothing in you changes, nothing in you develops. Why stay in that state? So when I took life into my own hands, that's when things starts to move, personally, spiritually, emotionally, professionally. So that's what I want to give to whoever wants to hear it. And I don't have a care of what people want to label me as.
I love that. So really, the impetus behind your channel and I guess your work and your mission is to lift other people up.
Lift them higher.
Sing it, girl. I love that.
Yeah, this is me trying to audition. I secretly like want to be a music. I don't really care. But yeah, it's just to spread life and positivity and reality, Richie, reality. You know, there is a world out there, you know, and there's a lot of things we think we know that we don't. We think we understand that we don't. And I think a lot of things that we read, a lot of data that we consume, especially from mainstream, it doesn't always match up with reality, you know, and a lot of things do, don't get me wrong, but not everything does. But at the moment, we're living in this almost bubble of rhetoric. And like you mentioned, I don't know if it was before this we started recording, but it's, you know, everyone has their own view of how they think the world is, and it's difficult to deviate from that. It's scary for some reason. I can change my mind tomorrow. I can have all the opinions I have today, and I literally speak to someone else, read something else, and my opinion can completely change tomorrow. Like it has changed. Like I've said, I've evolved. I used to think, no, it's only the person, no systems matter, whatever. But there's an understanding that there are situations that pressure people to do certain things or be in certain ways, you know. So that has evolved. I can change tomorrow and say, actually, it's nothing to do with the individual, change all the systems, burn it down. But we have to allow ourselves and each other the flexibility to grow as we continue to experience life. And there's no grace for that anymore. No, there's no allowance to allow people to do that. And that's why clashes happen, because we can have a conversation and all that's in the person's mind is, I'm not going to listen because you just want to change my mind and make me see how. No, it doesn't always have to be a zero-sum game, the sharing of ideas. And I feel that's what's causing this animosity in some parts in culture and society.
Yeah, no, I really agree with you. I used to be like that. I used to want to communicate to win, but now I just want to communicate to understand. Do you know what I mean? Like I want to know why you think what you think, and I want you to be able to listen to what I might suggest or my experiences and reflect on them. And maybe we're just both are richer people that way. And you can still have your views, and I can also have my views. But people will tell me that, well, you're a fucking white dude in New Zealand. Like, what, you know, like easy for
How
you to
dare
say.
you?
How, yeah. And what do you say to that? You know, like when we think about like standpoint theory and identity politics and who gets to talk, like, do you think everyone is allowed to have an equal say? Or if you are from an oppressed group, which there are, don't get me wrong, like this whole conversation, I'm not discounting that the world does treat us differently based on our skin color or our sex or our sexuality. These things are real. Do you think that there should be a primacy of who gets a voice and who doesn't? Or do you think it's an
Who
even
gets
playing
to
field?
decide? I guess the
Mm.
question is, sorry, answering question with a question. Who gets to decide then? Who gets to decide who is allowed? The people in the group? And then again, not everyone in the group has the same ideas and opinions and values. So this is the problem with these kind of thought of a man can't speak on a woman's issue because he's a man. But again, you will find, like I've said numerous times, you can't speak on an issue until you agree with the issue. The only ones that don't seem to be allowed to agree with the issue are those who are against the narrative. People say to me all the time, you can't speak on American issues because you're not American. But there are countless of non-Americans that speak on Trevor Noah, for example. You know, he emigrated there, but he agrees with the narrative. He buys into it. So he doesn't just, he's not just allowed to speak on it, he leads the conversations. So who gets to decide? And what is the criteria? The criteria always changes. So in my opinion, anyone can give an opinion on an issue. If you want to become an authority on an issue, then there must be that's different. There must be some credentials, there must be something backing you up to become an authority figure. But having a conversation, that's what people don't seem to get. Just because I have a certain amount of following or a certain amount of views doesn't mean I'm an authority on a subject. I'm still giving my own opinion. If people feel that makes sense for them, they want to act upon it, that's on them. You know, I'm clear that I'm not here to sort of be anyone's leader or anything. I'm here to share what I've seen through these two vision goggle things, these eyes, you know. I'm here to show the world. I don't know where. I think anyway. Yeah, I'm here to show the world.
I'm going to call them vision goggle things for the rest of my life now.
I don't know. I think I was watching like a superhero thing last night. Anyway, but yeah, so if you feel that makes sense, you feel that that does something to you, you want to use that information to, you know, act or not act, that's up to you. But I don't think that people having conversations or you having your podcast from Australia and you speak on
New Zealand.
New Zealand.
You're
Oops.
right. People always mix us up. People always mix us up.
Yeah,
it's fine. We're
it's
very
like
similar.
how they do. Yeah, it's like how they do Nigerian and Ghana all the time. I get it. But yeah, I think anyone can have an opinion, but that's a problem with social media, you know.
It really flattens out a lot of like really complicated ideas.
It does. So yeah, and it's sad. I think I think my message on this point is that whoever wants to say anything about a subject, if you're white, you want to speak on an issue that's a Black issue, or you're a woman, you want to speak on a transgender issue and so on. I'm doing like Jordan Peterson because because on a question time, which is like a political debate question and answer thing in the UK, Jordan Peterson was invited, and when they were talking about racism, he kept doing racism, and it was like a big thing in the UK. Like, what do you mean racism? So yeah, I'm following him. I don't mean that these things don't exist, but the problem with seeing it as Black issue or white issue or gay issue is that you forget that we're all human beings. You know, these are human issues. We can't dissect society so much that we become almost different kinds of human beings. I understand what you mean, that the world might treat different people differently, but the world can treat everyone. You will be treated differently depending on some places that you go, you know, and not always with royalty, as some people might think. Oh, because I'm a white man, I'll go there and they think I'm a king or a god. You would be surprised how some people can treat you depending on. So everyone can be treated a certain way. It's up to you how you internalize that, in my opinion. So
I've taken a good hour out of your morning. This has been very, very uplifting for me. I really have enjoyed listening to you and your thoughts and your understandings of the world and the journey you're on. And I find your mission hopeful, because sometimes I find social media and I find discussions around political issues a bit overwhelming. And it's, you know, like I've been super plugged in for like 20 something years. And I think this last 5 years in particular, it's just like snowballed to become like crazier and crazier. And I find myself like, do I check out now? Like, why do I keep talking about these things? But talking to people like yourself remind me that it is worth talking about complicated issues, and we do have a shared humanity, and that world will get better if we continue to approach it with open vision goggle things and an open heart.
I love it.
yeah. Hey, anything you want to finish on before we peace out?
Absolutely. I'm very grateful to have this conversation with you. And I do want to say that if social media is like overwhelming for anyone, then just get off it. Like, it's social media, it's not life. It's not, at the end of the day. That's what it's come to be, unfortunately. But, you know, it's not life. And also, people should just continue to have these conversations. You yourself continue to do so, because my mentality as the individualistic pioneer, I'm more focused on the individual. And if my voice can touch an individual and change, because that's what happened when I watched a video. And the first video I actually watched that red pilled me was a video from Candace Owens that everyone has an opinion about. But that was ironically the first video I watched, and I thought, because I had all my views, but I thought, wow, she's speaking and she's a Black woman, and I don't usually hear Black women say something that's against the narrative. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do that. And that's what touched me to start doing what I'm doing. So if I can be that to someone else, to have that bravery to speak, you don't have to say what I'm saying. You don't have to agree with what I'm saying. But if that makes you come out of your shell and share your own views with the world, then I'm more than happy. You know, my job is complete. I'm not here to change a group. I'm not here to change the mindset of the world. You know, that's God's job. If you believe in God, if you don't, I'm not going to start this conversation now, but could be another hour. But yeah, I'm just here to shed some light and a different perspective.
Different, yeah. We need more perspectives. We can't just have like, this is it, you know, like there's a really kind of like totalitarianism of thought, which I think dominates social media, and it's one way or the other. And I actually think it's all this big gray amorphous space. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hey, this has been real fun. Yeah, keep in touch. I just actually, I will. Yeah, my Instagram account just got disabled crazily. I'm like, what? So hopefully
I sent you a message as well. I was wondering.
So hopefully, my account will be reactivated and we can talk more.
Good luck.
Okay.
Oh, thanks, Richie.
All right.
Have a great evening.
Yeah, have a great day. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
See ya.